Hi, Kirsten Dahlerup here. I hope that you're well, and as always, I hope that you are taking good care of yourself. So today we're going to meditate using our emotions as a support. And as you know from the previous audios, the support is the thing, for lack of a better word, that we rest our awareness on to help our minds be stable, to help us practice stabilizing our minds. So often as humans, we identify with both thoughts and emotions and the stories that we tell ourselves. But I'd like you to consider, who is the you, or what is the you that is aware that you are thinking, that is aware of your thoughts, that is aware of what you're feeling? That part of you that is aware, that's the real you. Emotions and thoughts, they're always changing. So trying to grasp onto them and identifying with them as who or what we are is really just holding on to something unreliable. You're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you're the awareness, hearing your thoughts and feeling your emotions. So the awareness is that unchanging part of you that isn't dependent on conceptual thoughts for its understanding. It's like an inner knowing. And of course, often we are not aware of this, and we go through our everyday lives and we identify with this fiction in our minds, with these stories and narratives. And we may even live a lot of our lives based on what we imagine that other people think of us. So really it just becomes sort of a double nonsense. So I think it's so clever to use emotions as a support for our meditation. It's a bit like martial arts, I think. As I understand it, in martial arts, you may use the strength of the opponent to your advantage. So here we are kind of doing the same. So I'll tell you a little story before I'll explain how we're going to do it and before we do the meditation. So there's a story about an old wise monk and a younger monk who were traveling together. And they had reached the bank of a river that they needed to cross. And the river was higher than normal and flowing quite fast. And a young peasant woman, she was standing by the bank at the crossing, and she asked the monks if they could help her cross the river. But the thing is that these monks had made a vow to not have physical contact with women. So therefore the young monk, he barely acknowledged her and kept his distance. But the older monk recalled his vow to be of help to everyone he meets at all times and in all situations. So he agreed to carry her across. The younger monk was completely outraged at his traveling companion's blatant and apparently all too willing abandonment of his vows. Silently fuming, he strode heedlessly ahead through the river's powerful current. The older monk went slowly, carefully placing every footstep on the riverbed so that neither he nor the woman he was carrying lost their balance. After reaching the other side safely, the woman thanked the old monk and went on her way. The two monks walked on in awkward silence. And finally the younger monk angrily demanded to know how the older monk could possibly justify carrying the woman across the river. The older monk laughed. "I put her down on the other side of the river," he said, "but you're still carrying her." And that's how we are sometimes, isn't that right? We carry old stories. Sometimes, I think we may ask each other, "How was your day?" And if people aren't really aware of these things, they might go, "Oh, it was a terrible day." But actually, if you ask them, "Really? Was the whole day terrible? Or was it just 5 minutes?" Usually it's just a brief moment, and the rest is just that we keep repeating those stories in our minds. So let's learn to practice using emotions as a support. And of course, as you know, if you have, emotions and things that keep coming up, then I can help you via hypnotherapy, of course. There may be some old stories and narratives that used to serve you as a child to create a sense of safety, and today they're just outmoded. But as you know, these meditations here are to help you do something here and now for yourself. It's more like, giving you a tool to do something for yourself, to practice calming the mind. But the deeper work is something else. So anyway, going back to the meditation bit, we can of course use both positive and negative emotions as a support. But there's a difference in how we do this, and I want you to really take this in so that you do it in the most helpful way. So positive emotions, for instance, joy, love, empathy, compassion, excitement, these kinds of emotions are useful and beneficial. So if we want to place our attention on a positive emotion and use that as a support, then we can also focus on the object or the person that sparked this emotion. So for instance, it could be that you think of joy, and there's a person or a situation that reminds you of this feeling. So it's okay to rest your awareness on the whole picture of that, on the person as well, or the situation as well. Or let's say it's a sense of freedom and this kind of an image of a lovely place in nature or a beach. Then by all means, rest your awareness on that whole image, that whole picture. But if you want to use a negative emotion as a support to help you maybe even dissolve the emotion, or at least dissociate from it, then you do not want to focus on who sparked it or the situation that sparked the emotion. So we do not want to do that, because that would just tend to aggravate us and create an inner drama, a whole narrative. Then the monkey will start chattering about that. We don't want to do that. But what we can do is we can observe the emotion, not the object of the emotion. So you don't want to hold on to or suppress a negative emotion when we do this. Instead, observe it. So you can observe it almost like or like a shape or a color, for instance. Observe it outside of yourself and simply rest your awareness on it, just like if you were looking at an object. If you do this, you just look at the emotion as if it's a thing, then this can can halt the flow of negativity. So instead of running with a narrative, just look at it. Maybe it's a square and it's outside in front of you, and you just rest your awareness on it. Or maybe it looks like something else. If you are feeling really emotional, if you are, for instance, boiling over with anger, then what you can do, if you want to just use meditation rather than sort of working on that in therapy, which I of course would always recommend doing, but if you want to meditate on this emotion, what you can do is then you can choose also to have another emotion, a positive emotion, but let it be a strong positive emotion. So this could be a desire, for instance. And here you can look at what it is that causes the desire, just like I described with a positive emotion. So let's say you're looking at a negative emotion as support, but it feels as if it's kind of sweeping you away, it's a bit too strong. Then in your meditation, shift your awareness to a positive emotion, a strong positive emotion, and what that includes, the situation, the person, the place. And when that positive emotion, for instance, a desire, has become stronger than the negative emotion, then you can switch back to using the negative emotion as support for your meditation. So you can switch back and forth a bit. And, from my knowledge as a therapist, I also view this, because I was taught this in a Buddhist context, but from my perspective as a therapist, that's also you teaching your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, that you can shift from being caught up in a negative emotion to pushing it outside of you, dissociating from it. That already calms down the nervous system. And then switching to a positive emotion and staying with that teaches your nervous system that, I can go from a strong negative emotion to pushing it away, to feeling calmer, and even to feeling good, as in focusing on the positive emotion. So you're really learning to self-regulate by doing this as well. So it can be very powerful. So you can switch calmly when you choose to, not when your monkey chooses to, when you choose to, between the two, and just notice it, almost like that negative emotion really just loses its strength, or it can even melt away, and you can just sit with the positive emotion. And if you are only sitting with a negative because you feel you don't need the positive one to switch between, if you find that the negative emotion just sort of goes or transforms, then just sit, meditate, and use something else as a support. If you need a support, it can be a sound or the breath. But don't meditate with sort of what can we say, like a rigid feeling of, I want that negative feeling to go away, because then you're just adding more stress. Just sit with it. Just invite it in for a cup of tea. It's sitting there opposite you, can't affect you. You're just looking at it. And if it dissolves and melts away, then that's fine. And if it's just sitting there, but you are calm, your mind is stable, and you used it for that, great. So let's meditate. And just make yourself comfortable. Take a moment to settle in. And to start with resting your awareness on just on something else like your breath or sound. And also just set an intention for a peaceful meditation. May this meditation help you stabilize your mind. And you can even do it from a place of loving kindness for the benefit of you and those that you encounter. So just sit, take a few nice, comfortable breaths. And just start by resting your awareness on, not on an emotion, but just your breath or a sound or a sensation. Or let's say breath or sound for now. Just resting 25% of your awareness on the breath or sound. Another 25% is watchful and making sure that the first 25% is resting on that support. And 50% is just spaciousness. Just like if you were sitting in nature. And you may rest your gaze on a tree. But 50% of you is also aware of what's around the tree. So we're just going to sit like this for a moment, and if the mind wanders off into other things, just gently bring it back to the support. And now just gently notice within yourself which emotion you want to use for this meditation. Maybe an emotion that's been bothering you a bit, and in your mind's eye, just look at that emotion and move it outside of yourself. Notice what color it is, what shape it is, without judging it. It's neither good nor bad, it just is. And remember to just look at this idea of what that emotion looks like. Not a situation or a person, just the emotion. It's over there and you are here. You're just the awareness. Resting 25% of your awareness on that emotion. Again, just like if you were looking at a tree in nature, you're now just looking at that shape. Another 25% is watchful, making sure the first 25% is resting on that gently. And 50% is just spaciousness. And in case you feel that the emotion is sweeping your way a bit, then focus on another emotion to observe instead. For instance, desire. What does that look like? And here you can include the situation or the object of that desire or joy. Or even something sensual, because that's also a strong feeling. So you can just rest your awareness on that for a moment. And when this positive feeling feels stronger than the negative, then just go back and gently rest your awareness on the negative emotion. And if you need to, you can go back to the positive emotion until it feels manageable, easy to use the negative emotion as a support. And all along, you're just the awareness. You are none of those two, you're just the awareness. If the mind wanders off, just bring it back to one of those two. And if the negative emotion dissolves, then And just use your breath or sounds as your support. Just sit for another minute before you hear the ding. And for this last minute, just bring your awareness to your usual support, maybe your breath or sounds. Just sitting peacefully. Peaceful awareness. Very good. Just feel yourself here in the space where you are, present. And take a moment to look around. Notice 3 different colors. Very good. Enjoy, and of course you can use this for any emotion, and if you need any support, any deeper work or proper work one-to-one, then you know where to find me. KirstenDahlerup.com. Take care. Lots of love.